What is up? What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Off the Top Rope, Off the Mic Sports Network. I didn't think I'd be doing something like this, but you guys know, I keep it real. When it comes to professional wrestling, I've been hard on WWE recently, but I've been more hard on AEW, and a lot of people give me shit about it. But there was a story that I saw, from Fightful Select that came out early in the week, in regards to Danhausen. You guys remember Danhausen? Very nice, very evil. Um, you know, say what it is. He's a comedy character. Danhausen has not been seen on television basically for the last couple of years. He's been injured. Obviously, he spoke very highly of CM Punk, and with that, you go to Guantanamo Bay, and you get in Tony Khan's doghouse. But the report is, I guess he had um, injury time added onto his contract, and he is going to be with the company well into 2026. He's still listed on the official roster page. His original deal was supposed to expire July 1 of this year, but they extended it. He was getting ready to leave. My question is, and we've talked about this, with higher profile names like Chris Jericho, seemingly his contract's going to be up and they'll let him go. But now we turn around and you see something like this with, Danhausen, a comedy character, lower mid-card guy, lower card guy who, really goes out there, gets his ass kicked, is involved in a couple of comedy segments, does the cursing thing and, which was entertaining for a while. And, Danhausen's actually, a pretty accomplished guy on the independent scene and is really entertaining. But if you're Tony Khan, and you want to convince me that this guy, isn't really petty or is just, not, is a smart businessman. And the word going around from Fightful is there's no creative plans for Danhausen. Duh. What would they have him do on AEW television? Really? So what are you keeping him from? Are you scared he's going to go to WWE? You're not using him. You haven't used him for 2 years. Why'd you tack on the injury time? I don't understand this whatsoever. This is pettiness of the highest order. This is, keeping a guy just because you have an axe to grind. Tony Khan, may project this image that he's this nice guy and whatnot. But when you do stuff like this is the shit that people got driven crazy back in the early stages of AEW. When WWE would just hoard people on their roster to prevent them from going to AEW. And that being said, I don't even know if Danhausen would even go to WWE. Maybe WWE would try to bring him in for like NXT or Evolve or something. But listen, Danhausen he's 35 years old. He could potentially go back to the independent scene. Why he wanted to get out of there. There's no creative plans for him. You haven't used the guy since 2023? Right? You haven't used him since then? Maybe even further back than that. Like I said, it's injuries and whatnot. Why extends this guy's contract? Like, what's the point of this? What does this accomplish for AEW by keeping a guy on your roster that you have no intention of using? We saw this with Ricky Starks. We saw this with a bunch of other people that have been publicly, Britt Baker. We don't know what's going on with Britt Baker. She has a long contract. If you're not going to use people on your television product, why extend their contract? Why keep them employed? Why? Because you're scared, and especially like Britt Baker, on some level, I can understand because he's scared that she'll go to WWE and be part of amongst one of the great women's divisions in all of professional wrestling, probably the preeminent division in professional wrestling, and be utilized way better than she has in AEW. But for Danhausen, what's the reason keeping him around? I'm not trying to knock Danhausen here. I think Danhausen is a very entertaining performer, but you haven't used him, and his contract expired a month ago. We haven't seen him in God knows how long. This feels like pettiness because CM Punk and Danhausen get along. They have a relationship. This just feels really petty, and this feels really unnecessary to do to, a performer that, he could go work somewhere else and actually get on the product. Yeah, he's getting paid. And some people say, yeah, he's getting paid. Yeah, but you're not using him. And sometimes wrestlers, it's not just about money. It's about, hey, I want to get utilized. I want to be on television. I want to perform. I want to do what I love. When you're hoarding talent like this, like I said, this doesn't make you any better than WWE. Tony Khan is basically Vince McMahon. That's what he is, minus the sexual allegations. I've been saying this like a lot of other people on this app and over social media, but really a bizarre story there. Anyway, thanks so much. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.